Hey, welcome everyone to Studio W, the Buzz, your global radio network. We circle the globe 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with some of the finest broadcasts you can find anywhere around the globe. And now it's time for the Boomerang Radio Show. Got a very special show for you tonight, right here on the Buzz. And before we get into that, I want to welcome. I see two of my panelists there. I see Ann Wooten Taylor. Hey, Ann, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I thoroughly enjoyed your show yesterday. That was so inspiring.
Oh,
So
thank
inspiring. You had some
you.
great guests on.
Oh, praise the Lord.
Yes,
You
yes,
look,
yes.
you didn't hijack that one, so but I'm glad you enjoyed
It's
this show.
and it's never too late. It's never
I
too late.
know, right? I know. But yeah,
Okay,
Pastor Johnson
absolutely.
has an
And
awesome preaching ministry. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And welcome to the set, the Madman, Mad Mike. How are you?
I'm absolutely spectacular. I am. I've
Hey,
had
how
just
are
a
you?
wonderful, have had a wonderful couple of months. I mean, my life's always pretty good anyway, but just been able to do some really fun things and enjoyed doing a couple weddings in the last couple of months, and just everything's just turned out so well. I'm just very pleased.
Praise the
So
Lord.
Yes.
happy to
I don't
always
think
be
we
here.
talked. I don't think we talked about. You had one wedding a couple of weeks ago that you had. There were over 400 guests. How did that turn out?
That
Over
was
400.
it
That's a
was
lot.
stressful, but it's mostly stress that I put upon myself because I knew it was a big event. I had to set up two different music systems for two different rooms, so I had the added bonus of having to drag a whole bunch more equipment with me than I normally do. But that the couple was extremely pleased. They did something they didn't have to do because they're friends, and I never charged my friends, but they gave me an extremely good tip, I should say. And same thing happened this Friday. I did a wedding here at the Elks in Redlands, and it wasn't as big as that one, but that 400 person wedding, that was the biggest I've ever done.
I know you and I
Wow.
we talked about it before. You said you weren't worried, but you were a little concerned because you said that the bride she was a bit demanding. I'm not going to use the word, but a bit
She's
demanding.
very,
You know.
I wouldn't say demanding. She was very exacting. She was very prepared and very focused. So I don't want to paint her as a bridezilla. Uh,
Mhm, mhm.
or Bride of Frankenstein, nothing like. And she's very sweet. She knew exactly what she wanted, and she laid it all out for me. And it was like at 6 o'clock this, at 6:05 this, at 6:10 this. It was
Oh,
yeah.
good God.
So
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like
Yeah,
fun.
boy, oh boy, oh boy. But anyway, I told you, I said, Mike, you can handle it. Yeah, you could handle it. I knew you could. So, but anyway, we got a very special show tonight, and I'm going to let Ann do the honors. This gentleman right here, I was impressed. He was on our Tuesday show, Groove Swing Speaks, and I was so impressed with him, his bio, his resume, and everything. So I said, hey, Greer, we, I will have you on other platforms because he's just that it was just that great. It was inspiring, uplifting, and to see our young people do and accomplish such things, and especially at a very, very, very young age. So, but anyway, Anne, would you introduce Greer to our audience?
My pleasure. Greer Arthur Webb is a dedicated warrior for justice who cares deeply about bridging North Carolina's racial divide. A native of Raleigh, North Carolina, and a man of strong faith, he's a rising third year Woodruff Fellow at Emory University School of Law. He's a graduate of UNC Chapel Hill, where he was a Moorhead Kane Scholar. Mr. Webb has been recognized state and nationwide for his advocacy efforts because he knows that diversity as people is what strengthens us. Some of his honors include receiving the Triangle MLK Committee's inaugural John Lewis Student Activist Award and being inducted into the Phi Beta Kappa Academic Honor Society in 2023. In February 2023, Mr. Webb was invited to the White House in Washington, D.C., and to the official residence of Vice President Kamala Harris, where Greer was recognized as one of America's emerging Black leaders. While at UNC Chapel Hill, Mr. Webb was a true leader of his peers. He served in executive roles within the Black student movement and student government. Notably, he served as a senior advisor to UNC's 100th student body president, Lamar Richards. Greer is firmly devoted to service, currently working as senior advisor to Sidekicks Academy Incorporated. It's a Durham based nonprofit that uses Taekwondo to teach elementary school students about character, respect, and justice. Last summer, Greer worked as a legal intern with the Federal Defender Program in Atlanta. Last fall, he served as a student attorney with Emory Law School's Juvenile Defender Clinic. This summer, Greer is working as a summer associate at the Atlanta firm of Parks, Chesson, and Walbert. He's a proven leader who loves to learn, cherishes collaboration, and is determined to effectuate change. Welcome to the show, young man. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you. Good evening to you all. Good evening to all of our viewers and listeners. Great to be back with you, Brother Brown, on this good Sunday evening.
Awesome to have you.
Well,
Awesome
thank you for accepting the invitation. It's always eager. And also, Greer, you started a podcast as well. I think just a short while back.
Yes, sir. A few months ago,
Hey,
I started a Go ahead.
No, you continue. A few months ago?
I was saying, a few months ago, I started a podcast with a friend of mine. His name is Clay D'Souza. It's called The Week Cap. And it's similar, probably not as good as what you all do here, but we recap the week's events, political, cultural, and sports. And so that airs every weekend, either Saturday or Sunday, as fast as we can turn it around on YouTube.
Awesome.
And so I will have someone put the link in the chat here, but I'm a huge avid fan of podcasts and just being able to connect with people like this as often as possible.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. Love it.
And tell the audience, what inspires you to go in this direction? I understand you have two loving and very supportive parents. What sparked your interest and your desire to do what you're doing now?
So as I mentioned, and I see Brother Delon in the comments, I will post that link to the podcast as well as other ways to contact me. It all goes back to people for me. I like to tell people that one of my favorite things to do is just listen to people, learn their stories, have conversations with them. We need more of those quote unquote kitchen table conversations where we sit down across from one another and talk about what motivates us, what makes us mad, what brings us joy. And so one of the things that I find that does that for me is people. I also enjoy politics. I said on your show, Brother Brown, before, but I tell people every chance I get that the root word of politics, POL, just means of a people or of a citizenry. If you don't do politics, it'll surely do you. So I love to find ways to personalize politics, to make it fun and enjoyable, and really encourage people to be part of the political process. As you mentioned, I'm now going into my third year of law school down here in Atlanta at Emory University School of Law. And again, along those same lines, I just want to learn more about what motivates people, how to hold people accountable. What does it look like to obey laws, but also have free will? And so I'm able to explore those topics and more at Emory University School of Law. And then as you mentioned in my bio, Ms. Wooten Taylor, I love to serve. I'm a huge supporter of Sidekicks Academy, where I serve as senior advisor. Sidekicks is actually an acronym for those listening and watching. It stands for Students Involved in Discipline Education, Keyed into Claiming Knowledge and Success. That spells the word sidekicks, and we are an academy. So we prioritize education, but we also teach elementary schoolers about the martial arts and encourage them to act up in our gym, not in class. And so I'm excited that on August 2nd, I'll be going on Miss Ann Wooten Taylor's show to discuss sidekicks and discuss more about what drives me when it comes to exercise and mental wellness. But for tonight, I'll just tell you, Brother Brown, that it all goes back to people for me. Always has and always will.
All right. Praise the Lord. Look, you're going to be on more than that. I got plans for you, young man.
Absolutely. I want to toss this over to Ann. I'm not going to hog all the time. But what inspires me about you is that I see that lawyers, they go into their field for one or two reasons, or maybe one. Some go in for say, I'm going to be a lawyer so I can make a whole lot of money. And people like you going in, I'm going in here. I want to serve. I want to make a difference, and that's what inspires me about you. And that
Don't get
passion?
it twisted
What
now. I want
drives
to make
that?
a difference and make a little bit of money, but making a difference outweighs
Right.
money.
Right. You can do both.
That's
Not,
right. That's right.
not all the
You do
time.
both.
Some people don't, but you can do both. It's possible.
I'm gonna
Amen.
talk,
Amen.
I'm gonna talk this toss this over to Ann. Ann was so excited because you guys both of you are in the same field, you know, and so I'm so excited about that. Then after Ann, let's go to Mike and see. I'm sure Mike has a ton of questions. And
Well, I just want to say welcome to the show again. I'm very impressed with your resume. And of course, you know, when we talked, I was extremely impressed with everything that I heard. Um, what started your love for advocacy and your drive for justice? I'm just curious.
Sure. So Brother Brown alluded to it, but I really credit much of my advocacy work with my parents and to my community. Have two loving parents who support me, always have, continue to do so even from afar. I was born and raised in Raleigh, North Carolina, which I say is the greatest state in the union. It certainly is one of the most diverse. We have mountains, we have a coast, we also have the in-between. We have the most Native Americans east of the Mississippi River. And so we have it
Wow.
all. It was an amazing place to grow up. And so to have two parents and even to have all four of my grandparents still living and still
That's a
motivating
blessing.
and encouraging me is a blessing. Have a great community there in Raleigh and have made some new connections down here in Atlanta. So again, people are what drive me, but what started all of this is certainly my family. I'm blessed to have that story. I know that's not everyone's story, but I have a very loving and supportive, family. And so that's a large part of why I am where I am today. I would also say that my faith drives me toward advocacy. So I'm a strong
Amen.
believer in Christ and in there being a higher power, right? A greater being that dictates what we do. And so we're here on earth to bring the Lord praise. It is Sunday. We're here to
Amen.
be in community and serve those beyond ourselves. And so however I can do that in a way that is inviting and in a way that is inclusive, and maybe even in a way that is challenging to some people's points of view. That's what I want to do. I'm doing it all with compassion. So I credit my family, specifically my parents, but also my community back home in Raleigh, North Carolina. I see some of them in the chat. So I'm grateful for them tuning in tonight.
Yeah, somebody said you need to
Oh,
post
yeah,
the
you wanna
link.
keep you
Yeah,
up.
Dylan Fletcher said he needs that link. He's not he's serious about that. Thank you for
Yes,
tuning in,
indeed.
Dylan. I'm glad to have you with us. Well, you know, you are young to be so involved in politics and advocacy. Do you find that to be something that is lacking with your generation, or something that seems to be picking up speed more and more?
I would say in a way, and that's a great question. It's both. I always encourage young people to get involved, and I would love to see us have a greater voting power and higher engagement numbers. But I would also tell those of our audience that young people have always been on the front lines of history, whether it was the anti-war movement during the Vietnam War period or the civil rights movement or even Black Lives Matter and everything that came after the tragic murder of George Floyd in May 2020. Young people have always been around. We're here. We make our voices known. And what I would say on the flip side of that is I think one of the reasons that young people are so or can be so apathetic, as we all can be, is because we've become so desensitized to some of the happenings in this country. When we look around, this generation, Gen Z, I'm speaking about, has been adversely impacted by gun violence. It's one of the number one killers of our children today. We also see this opioid epidemic still rearing its ugly head, and that particularly affects those who are young and live in rural America. And so when we talk about race relations and AI and technology and all of this, it can be great when it's used for good, but it can also be very taxing, especially to a generation where we are talking more about mental health and being involved in our communities. But I said on another show not too long ago, a lot of people are posting and we see them on social media, but behind the scenes, they're not fully content. And
Mm,
so one of my goals is to make sure that I have conversations with young people to understand exactly what drives them, but also what's holding them back. And so I
mm,
think young people are really primed right now to make a very positive impact on the future of this country, of this nation. We just need to work hard to not only work together, but also learn from older generations. And I do think it's incumbent upon older generations of Americans to listen and to reach out to younger Americans. And It's not that long ago that you all were sitting where I am, and you probably at least remember what it was like to be a 24, 25-year-old. And so more compassion, more understanding is what's needed. And I think we'll see more young people come to the forefront of so many conversations in this country.
So is that what your podcast focuses on?
So the podcast, The Week Cap, which we launched just a few months ago, does focus on young people in particular. It focuses on Gen Z, our thoughts and views on, like I said, politics, but also greater cultural moments. Like, for example, the other week we talked about the P. Diddy trial and verdict.
Right.
We also talk about sports. And so Wimbledon just concluded today with the men's final. We also talk about just what it means to get involved in our communities. And so we publicize local happenings there in North Carolina, where my co-host lives, and also here in Atlanta, Georgia.
You know, you mentioned what's going on and talking about kids with school. I think when you and I talked on the phone, I mentioned I'm sure law school is really interesting these days. I told AJ by the time he gets there, everything that's been happening since 2016 is probably going to be in all the books. Whether you're talking about political science class, and when you get to, oh my gosh, I can't even think about con law and legal ethics and oh my God, criminal law. I mean, it just seems like there's another major thing happening that will affect what you learn in law school every single day. So I imagine it's been interesting these last 3 years.
It's certainly been interesting. I have more time now to really just sit back as I go into my last year and think about what the current state of the law is in this country, what type of impact I want to make as a budding attorney. To your point, we've seen some major doctrines like the Chevron doctrine be overturned. We've seen Roe versus Wade be overturned. And whatever your views on that are, we won't get into that right now. It's a major occurrence that shifts the way that the law is interpreted in this country. So it affects our profession pretty drastically. And so what I would say to that is I think that's another reason why young people may be so tuned out. And what I like to tell people, I like analogies. I tell people to put your phone on the charger, but don't totally unplug, right? We need your voice, we need your energy, but self-care is important. So to conclude that point, I would just say that I think part of the apathy amongst young people, like those who call themselves a part of the Gen Z generation, is because there's so much information coming at us all the time. And so while it's great that we have cell phones, smartphones, while it's great that we have AI, and I'll come back to that later, I'm sure, it also means that we're inundated with information. And you all know we live in this 24/7 news cycle. And so it can become repetitive and cause people to tune out when there's not enough good news shared. So I like to broadcast positive news, positive stories, uplifting messages. And that's also part of what we do on the Week Cap every week.
So is the apathy like a defense mechanism? Because we hear a lot about, you know, kids dealing with a lot of mental health issues. You got kids now on antidepressants and anxiety meds, and it used to be the adults used to be switched, but now kids are just, I think, worried and concerned about so much stuff. So is that kind of why there may be those who I just can't deal with anymore? I can't listen to anymore. And then you have others who seem to take a whole different track. They turn everything into a moment where it's a joking matter. It's like it's either you laugh or you cry. And so I've seen kids do podcasts where they make jokes about, you know, a school being shot up or something like that. It's not that they don't care, but I think they have to find a way to cope with it. Is that something that you think may be happening? Why there's this apathy? Why there's so much of a mental health crisis with kids, or what?
I think so. I mean, it is a mental health crisis, and I think that sounds kind of existential to some, but that's the truth. I think one of the, I guess, upsides to that is that we now have a name for it. We're now able to allocate and direct resources toward young people, all people, but specifically young people who are going through times of mental health difficulty. And I think part of the conversation around including mental health or mental wellness into the greater wellness conversation is critical, right? Because so much of what we see in this world with the violence and people's trauma that actually changes how your brain is wired and how your brain functions. And so treating it as we do other diseases like cancer, as we treat other diseases like osteoporosis or diabetes, and understanding that this is actually impacting people and making it harder for them to live, that doesn't mean they can't live and live well, but it means that it inhibits them. And it's something that we need to help them through. Right. And so I think that's one of the critical ways, and we talked about messaging, Brother Brown, last time I was on this network. That's one of the critical ways to talk about the mental health or mental wellness epidemic in this country, is that it's something that people have to go through. It's not something you can just hop over. And so when we talk to young people, when I talk to young people about what they're going through, I think some of that apathy does bear its ugly head, if you will, in the form of jokes about serious matters, because they don't have the tools. Young people don't always have the tools to address it. And just saying, well, older generation just moved on through it, so you should be able to do the same thing. That actually is a more of a diminishing perspective, and actually diminishes and makes people put away or couch their feelings. And we often see later in life, whether it's a 24-year-old or a 54-year-old, whether they're shooting up a school or, shooting at firefighters who are coming to help save them in Idaho, we see that it rears its ugly head. What goes around comes around. And so if we just diminish people instead of really lean in and try to help them, I think, yes, that apathy can look like joking. And I think that young people react differently to different situations, but it's more important to look for triggers and root causes so that we can be preventative rather than reactive. I will also say that I'm a big proponent of intergenerational conversations and intergenerational change, which means me working with all of you on this call, which means, 15-year-olds working with 85-year-olds to learn their stories and learn their messages. Because when you talk to people and establish relationships with them, you can come to that level of understanding faster than if you don't know the person. And so it's harder to diminish somebody, or dismiss is a better word, somebody, when you've had a long-standing relationship with them. So I like to create relationships with folks and encourage people to get involved in their communities, to stand up for themselves. And again, this can be fun, right? When we talk about these matters, it seems serious, but I've actually seen mental health fairs that are really fun and really informative, anti-gun violence rallies that include a level of fun. Politics to me is fun, but faith can also be fun. And so finding times to create joy and actually instill patterns of joy in your life is going to be critical when we talk about resisting evil and injustice.
Do you think that the generations before you are like part of the problem, why there's this mental health crisis going on with the younger generation? When I think about all the stuff we could have done, to prevent climate change and so many other things that didn't happen. And then for us to be the one saying, suck it up or grow up or just deal with it. Is it that we are making it harder for you all than it has to be? Is that the way you all feel, or at least some of the problem with the mental health crisis?
I think that's some of the issue. I mean, again, messaging is important to me. Words do matter. So I'm not necessarily sure, or I am sure that all of the problem certainly doesn't rest at the feet of older generations. I think that the way that we view and have access to tools and resources has really changed. And so the fact that we're even talking about mental health within the first 25 minutes of this conversation is important, right? That never would have happened 30, 40 years ago. Mental health, what is that? You just power through. Or somebody who has severe mental health issues, we used to outcast them or even institutionalize them. So I don't think those actions were helpful. I don't think necessarily blaming people is the answer. Now, I think it's going to take working together to really ensure that we are funneling these resources to the right people, the right resources to the right people. And I think one of the issues there that we see currently is the lack of funding. We seem to be able to find funding for everything except what really matters, right? During COVID, we were able to bail out the airlines. Currently, we're targeting all of our money toward immigration raids and other things. So where is the money for mental health, right? Where is the money to make people well? I see it done pretty well at the state level, and mental health resources are included in Medicaid programs. But when we zoom out, where is the emphasis on making people well mentally so that they can enjoy all the aspects of life that come with being a citizen or a resident of this great nation? And so people's budget really reflects their priority. And so when it comes to bills made for example, that have just been passed in Congress or even within your respective states. Look at where that money is going and see if your legislators are talking about mental health and making sure that we are creating human beings who are well, that can then go and produce that work, who can then go be active members of their congregations, who can then go be upstanding members of their communities and show up for their families. So the way that we funnel funding in this country, I think, is also a larger conversation, but I think is part of the issue. I like to look at actions and consider what we might do differently in the future rather than blame individuals of the past.
You mentioned we've talked about justice being one of the things you advocate for. It sounds like mental health as well as health and fitness, which I love with the sidekicks thing. So what are the other things that you're passionate about advocating for, if there are any?
Oh man, I'm passionate about young people. I'm passionate. Let me just break it down a little bit. So I'm passionate about young people because, as I mentioned, young people are the leaders of the now and the future. I like to tell people, I may have mentioned this before on this network, but it's important to keep this in our minds. And this is not to be offensive, but young people, consider members of Gen Z, for example, who are 24, 25 years old, are going to live longer than older Americans generally. And so that means the decisions that are made now are going to impact people like me longer than they are going to impact people like you all.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that that's a derogatory statement. That means that that's something that's generally true and something we need to address. And so when we think about climate change or gun violence prevention, or mental health, we're often thinking of the now. What do we need to do? There's a crisis now. But what I'm trying to get people to understand is, what about the 24-year-olds in 50 years when we're 74? Are there going to be enough resources left over to support us? What about people who have ongoing mental illnesses? How do we support them over time and not just try to poke and smash these problems as they arise in the present? So I'm passionate about young people because we're going to be here a while, right? Whether folks like it or not. And so we need
got more days ahead of you than the rest of us.
That's right. More days ahead than behind. And so what that means is that we should be supported and encouraged. And as a young person myself, I should take a leading role in that process. I'm passionate about mental health because, as I've already mentioned, mental health drives so much of what we do. It's also important to note that mental health oftentimes has to do with mentorship. The reason why people's self-esteem is so low is because they have no reflective representation of who they're supposed to be. Right. I'm going into preacher mode a little bit because it's a Sunday.
That's
but
all right.
there's a quote that says you can't be what you can't see. And so why do we expect people to be a certain way when they didn't grow up like that? Unfortunately, they don't have any family members who did what you're telling them to do. They had no mentors, at least no sustainable mentors, who stuck around in their life and encouraged them to do what you're telling them to do. And then we turn around and act like, why are all these young people running around crazy? It's because they did not see anything, so they cannot be exactly what you're trying to box them into. And so mentorship is very key when it comes to mental health, primarily because when someone else is encouraging you to do something, or when someone else shares a story about how something worked for them, you're more apt to do that. And so that is the model that we've built out at Sidekicks Academy in Durham, North Carolina, which had a Black Wall Street, by the way, before it was destroyed.
Wow.
What we do for our primarily students of color is encourage them through mentorship to take a leading role in their communities by being mental health advocates in the classroom, and warriors on the martial arts mat. And so when you combine those things together, that's where we're seeing success. We've seen a 33% reduction in suspensions amongst our students, while they increased their standardized testing scores by 33%. And these are third, fourth, fifth graders. Again, standardized testing, folks, at third grade is a conversation for another day, but making sure that our students have the resources to lead in their communities, but also in the classroom. And then I would also just round this out by saying I'm also passionate about advocating for a better culture. So I love sports. I grew up playing tennis and basketball. I love watching sports. The home run derby, Major League Baseball, is tonight. That All-Star Week is actually taking place here all next week in Atlanta. And so just keeping an ear out and an eye out for, what is on the radar of our culture and trying to create a better, more compassionate culture. I guess that rounds out what I'm most passionate about.
Well, thank you so much for answering my questions. I know I've monopolized your time for about 30 minutes. I want to give shout outs to Emma. Thank you for being here. Good Sunday to you. Hello. Is that Talarik or Talark?
Tyler.
Laura.
He's a recording artist.
Oh, glad
he's
to
a
have you
recording
with
artist.
us. Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for being with us, everybody.
Awesome.
All right,
Yes,
I'll
and we've
move
got
over
quite a
and be
few.
quiet.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Mike is coming first, but I do want to introduce to you, Mr. Webb, Dr. Sims, Dr. Cecilia Sims, and her field. She's a minister, but she's also in the mental health field. Dr. Sims, meet
Nice to meet you.
Mr. Greear A. Webb, intelligent, just brilliant. And I get so excited. I'm smiling here, and brilliant questions. Thank you so much. And equally
My
as
pleasure.
brilliant answers, Greer. And let's go to the madman, Mike. I'm impressed. I'm thoroughly impressed. I was impressed when I first met him, so I said, "We've got to have you on the Boomerang. You must come on."
Yes,
So,
I'm
Mike,
glad to be here.
yes.
I'm glad to be here, truly.
Glad to have you.
so Mike, what do you have with Greer?
Greer, you're a fascinating young man, and I thank you for taking time out of your day to spend it with us here and go through the things that we worry about too as senior citizens, especially William at his advanced age. So,
Wow. Wow.
He's seasoned. He's seasoned. That's all.
yeah, he's seasoned all right.
Real season. Okay.
I have a different perspective on
Please excuse him, Greer. Please excuse Mike. Yeah, he has issues.
I
He has serious
have
issues.
I have lots of issues.
Speaking
I
of,
do have issues.
no, hold on,
But
Mike. Speaking
at
of
least
mental
at least I admit my issues.
Okay. Now,
See what you
Which
stepped
are
into,
many.
Greer. See.
I see why y'all call it the boomerang now.
That's right.
Back and forth.
Hey, Greer, we like to laugh.
Yes.
William and I, we do a music program on Thursday nights called Coast to Coast. You should tune in sometime and listen to it. It's good music. But we like to tease each other. We like to laugh, and we commonly refer to the two most healing things are laughter and music. And they both uplift our souls and make us feel better, even when we're depressed. So,
Totally.
so we like to laugh here, or at least I like to laugh. So, I have a different definition of the term politic. I think when we started tonight, what was your definition of politic?
So I actually didn't define it. I just said that the root word of politics, POL, comes from the ancient Greek, which means of a people or of a citizenry. And so I just encourage people to not say, well, I don't do politics, because when I hear that, as someone knows who the root of the word, that seems to me like, oh, you don't do people, right? You're not willing to maybe engage in this thing called politics, and politics is certainly engaged with you. So I didn't necessarily define it, but I just like to set up the word and just encourage people to not run from the word.
So here's my setup. Here's my definition of it. If you look back to Latin, I believe poly means many, and tic is a bloodsucker.
I knew he was going
Wow.
I don't have a healthy respect for most politicians. So I hope if you involve yourself in politics, I hope that you don't become one of those people.
Well, I hope not. Let me just interject to say I agree with you. I think politics, or the word political, has a bad rap, and I'm not trying to redefine it. Again, I'm just trying to help people understand that it's important to at least know what's going on around you. And so many politicians do have a bad rap, as do many lawyers, for being ambulance chasers and the like. But I think it's important and incumbent upon us to, like I said, change culture for the better. I think there's some good politicians out there. I think there's some bad politicians out there. What I want people to understand, though, and I think part of the issue with the current state of the culture, speaking politically in this country, is that people are confused. And so when I speak about politics, and when I say, yes, there's some bad politicians, what I really mean is party politics. The two-party system in this country has really set us up to fail, I believe. And so when I hear the word politic or politic or community building, that has positive connotation to me. To your point, when I hear politicians or when I hear party politics, that's the negative connotation. So I just wanted to distinguish that. I agree with you. I think there are many issues in our political system, primarily the two-party system being one of the major issues. But I think it is important for people to be involved in what's going on around them.
So how do you visualize your future? Because you're very young, you've accomplished a great deal at your young age. So I hope that you have an extremely not profitable, but a life that's very filled with accomplishments. And you've already accomplished a great deal. So, but do you see your future as more of an attorney dabbling in politics, or someone involved in politics that dabbles as being an attorney? I mean, how do you see yourself, like in a 50-50 split, or what do you think your future, what do you think is in your future?
It's a great question. I don't know what the specific percentage breakdown would be, but I do want to certainly get my feet wet and really understand all I can when it comes to practicing the law. Currently, I'm working at an employment law firm here in Atlanta called Parks, Chesson and Walbert. That's been really interesting because they do plaintiff side employment work. So we're talking about people who may have been wrongfully terminated for a variety of reasons. We take pregnancy discrimination cases, mainly involving women who come back from maternity leave and are mysteriously fired. We also have some racial discrimination cases. And so it's been interesting because that's never really been my primary focus. Last summer, I worked at the Federal Defender Program down here doing federal criminal defense for folks who couldn't necessarily pay for private defense attorneys. That was very interesting, specifically or particularly being here in Atlanta, which has the world's busiest airport. We saw a lot of airport cases. And then the summer before that, I worked at a personal injury law firm, also plaintiff side here in Atlanta. So civil versus criminal, not totally sure yet. I think right now I'm leaning criminal. And then law versus politics, again, not totally sure, but I'm leaning toward doing both because they both involve people. And I would say too, again, since it's Sunday, that my pastor this morning here in Atlanta said something that really stuck with me, and I think partially answers your question, which is that a lot of our agitation as people comes from a good thing, comes from our willingness to live forward into the unknown. A lot of our agitation or frustration comes from our willingness to live forward into the unknown. And so what that means to me is that none of us know exactly what our lives are going to look like. And so the fact that we take one step after the next, live one day at a time, continue to move forward, having these higher overarching goals is really what actually agitates us. Because as people, we want that binary that you were alluding to, right? What is the percentage split? What does this look like? And for me, yes, there are many accomplishments in my bio, and I'm blessed to have those. Again, that goes back to family and faith, in my opinion. But all of those accomplishments have come from me trusting in the Lord and trusting in the people around me after surrounding myself with good people to know that I'm going to have the experiences. I'm going to have the opportunities. I need to do the best, give my best work product to each opportunity I can, and the future will align itself. And so to answer your question, I don't know if it's the answer that you were looking for, or it may not be a perfect answer, but to me, one of my favorite things about living this life, even though I am only 24, is that God willing, I have a lot of life ahead, which means a lot of opportunities to learn and explore. So I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. I don't want to be one of these blood-sucking politicians who does this.
Right.
I also don't want to be somebody who, as we alluded to earlier, is just in it for the money. And so I'm in it for the people. I'm in it to learn. Obviously, I have to plan for the future, and so I do my best to save money, to work out, and keep my body fit. I'm in law school, so I do want to put that degree to good use. Especially my parents are listening. I'm going to put the degree to good use. But at the end of the day, I want to do something that is not just fulfilling for me, but certainly changes the culture in a way that is necessary and needed, whatever that looks like, wherever I am.
Nice. No, I wasn't looking for a specific answer. It's just more of a question of where do you see yourself in 10 years? I really like your perspective on mentorship, because I think we have a lot of young people that are kind of lost, and they're in the dark room and they're feeling their way around the walls, trying to find the light switch to turn it on. And some have given up. And we had, in my profession, we had a term called complacency kills, because if you become complacent, you've given up. You're like, there's people of all ages, I believe, get into this rut of, well, there's nothing I can do about it, so I'm just not even going to pay attention to it. Something I call the ostrich syndrome, where you stick your head in the sand because you don't want to see all the bad stuff that's happening in this world. So I really love your perspective on mentorship and getting people involved and saying, you can do something about this. You can be active in your community. You can start with little things and then build up from there.
I think just quickly on that point, if I could, I like to tell people too that one of the greatest forms of resistance is joy. Do things that bring a smile to your face. Do things that make you laugh. Listen to music, right? Do these one day at a time, even one moment at a time. Engage in those types of actions and you'll get to where you want to be. Because at the end of the day, mentorship matters, mental health matters, but who you are also matters, and making sure that you're fulfilled, making sure that you have that you're walking the journey toward your purpose matters. And so it's just tough to your point, Mike, to always be thinking about the bad news or to always be looking ahead or it's overwhelming, right? Just thinking about all that this world has to offer. But there's also so much beauty and joy in the opportunities of this world and particularly of this country. And so it is tough, I think, especially for young people who don't have mentors, to look beyond their current moment. But again, if you can find joy in your current moment, then you have a reason to reciprocate that joy tomorrow. By the time you know it, you're 10 years down the line doing something you love. So mentorship certainly matters, as do music and mental health, because joy is the strongest form of resistance.
Which you just fell into one of the terms I like to use, which William and I talk about constantly, is a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. So by sharing your knowledge and expertise and your experiences in life, by sharing those, you've lit the other candle. And now that candle's creating heat, and that candle can light another candle, and so on and so forth. So I really like your perspective. And so many, you alluded earlier that people, they don't know what they haven't seen or can't see. And it's because many young people, I'll go back to all ages, they live in their own little bubble, and they don't want to step outside that bubble because now it possibly can make them feel uncomfortable. And we don't, as human beings, we don't like feeling uncomfortable. So we just say, and we go back to the ostrich and, well, I live in this little bubble. I'm happy with my bubble. I'll just leave it alone. Right. Not understanding that they have the power to affect other people, their hearts, their heads, their spirit. And by mentoring and giving or doing something, just little things, you don't have to make money at it. But they feel like they can't affect what's going on. They don't have enough power. They don't have enough juice. Right. So let me see. We did complacency.
If I could just on that point.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I think you're making some great points there. One, I want to just hone in on a little bit. So first of all, I agree with you. That is a lot of people's philosophy. But I like to flip that on the head when I'm talking to folks and say, think about the reverse. If everybody said, I'm not going to make a difference, or, we hear it all the time, especially in the political space, right? Oh, my vote doesn't matter. Well, if everybody thought that, we'd have no elections. Nobody would vote. Somebody is making the difference. So why not let that be you? At the end of the day, whether it's voting, whether it's mentorship, to your point about comfort, I think that's why mentors are so important, because it gives you someone to lean on when you are uncomfortable or when you are in a new space. But this whole idea of, nothing I do is really going to make a difference. Just think of some of our world leaders, right? Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, for example. These other folks, Dr. King, to name a maybe more cliche or more popular leader.
Big names.
Their stories would be null and void if they had just thought, well, my difference is not going to be big enough. Mm-hmm. They started small. They did what they knew. In Dr. King's case, since he is pretty well known, minister, right? Community builder. He boycotted. He died at 39 as a hated person. It wasn't all of this love that a lot of people, again, mainly politicians these days on both sides, love to laud him and say, well, let's just do what Dr. King did, and let's just judge by content of character and not talk about race. Let's just do this or that, not knowing that he had to struggle to lead. He had to struggle to succeed, and he died a hated man. That's Black people and white people and everybody in between. They did not like him because he was radical. They did not like him because he was a culture changer and a culture shifter. They didn't like him because he encouraged people to use their power. And so
it made him uncomfortable.
Right. He made people uncomfortable. Yep. But he also had a way of drawing people in. Hey, I'm going to make you uncomfortable, but I'm going to give you a home. You can come protest with us. Hey, I'm going to make you uncomfortable. Wow. Right. But I am going to come to you. I mean, he had so many acquaintances in the Jewish community. He wasn't Jewish, but he went to them and said, hey, I'll come to you. Now let's work together, make some more people uncomfortable, but let's give them a diverse home to come to in those times of discomfort. And so my point in saying all that is I think you're right. People don't like discomfort. But if you want true change, as I mentioned to you on your show, Brother Brown, it's going to take education. It's going to take some protesting and some discomfort, and it's going to take policy change, whether that's public or private, to really give yourself a way to hold people in power accountable and to give yourself a way to protect yourself. You have to get some written change on the books, right? We've got to get some of these laws changed. We've got to get some of these company policies changed, whatever they might be, because otherwise you're just speaking into air. And so I like to maybe just round this out by giving a concrete example of that. 2020, right? A lot of people said, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make a difference. We've got this pandemic thing. I don't know what this is about. And then George Floyd was murdered in May. And for some reason, it didn't take people long to realize that, oh, I actually do have power. Even in the midst of a global pandemic, I can use my voice. I'm an older person, but I can donate snacks and food and water to people who are nonviolently protesting. And so that's one of the best examples of what I'm talking about. People wanted true change in that moment. They wanted to ensure that no other Black man or woman of any color in this country, no American, would be kneeled on for that long and die at the hands of those who are supposed to protect and serve us. So we had people educating themselves. We had people protesting. We didn't have that policy change, though. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is still sitting in Congress. They couldn't pass it. Companies invested and made pledges to Black and brown communities, hoping that would help this effort in 2020. And some of those pledges have not been realized by companies like Uber and Google and Bank of America and Target, who's now going against DEI, which they were so for in 2020. So what's changed in these past 5 years, I think, is a great example of this equation, I call it, for true change. People will educate themselves. People protest often when they feel discomfort or when they feel like that's all they know to do. But that policy change, changing the law, I guess is one of the reasons I'm in law school, or changing company policies to make sure that people are protected. And those at the top who have a lot of wealth, who have a lot of status, who have a lot of privilege, are held accountable to those who helped generate that wealth, status, and privilege. And so at the end of the day, again, it comes back to people. I'm all for having fun. I'm all for making connections. But the moment that people start engaging in actions to hurt others, we're going to have a talk. And I hope that you'd get on board with me when it comes to creating true change to really protect our neighbors and uplift them.
I am all for change, and I'm all for addressing these things that have been broken for not just years, but for decades, maybe even 100 years. A lot of the stuff has been broken.
Sure.
So I'm in all the way for the change. I'm not for indiscriminately throwing money at a problem where the money just is blown through without accomplishing something. I mean, you have to make sure that things are in check so that this money is going for this, and this is the expected outcome. And you have to have the checks and balances that we should have throughout our government, which necessarily don't work all the time. And I would add to that, either our laws, rules, policies, and practices are applied equally and fairly to everyone, or they don't mean anything. So we need to start with that. We need to get on board that these things we have to have these checks and balances. And the last thing, this is a gotcha question. But I'm warning you in advance, it's a gotcha question.
Go for it.
I believe that mankind is driven by three things: money, power, and fame. Why do you go to work? Because I need money to take care of my family and in order to survive. So money, power, and fame are the three things that drive mankind. What drives you?
So before I answer in typical lawyer fashion, I'm going to push back on the question and say that I appreciate and hear your perspective that money, fame, and or power drives most people, if not all people. I actually think it's something else, and it's just one concept that drives people, and that's wanting to feel included, and wanting to feel loved, wanting to feel seen and heard. So at the end of the day, what drives me is, I know I've said it, millions of times, probably throughout my life, and I've said it tonight, but what drives me is people. What actually drives me, though, is making sure that I surround myself or place myself into communities, into environments, into jobs where I am going to be seen, heard, and feel included. And by nature of seeking out people who are inclusive, even though that's a trigger word for some, by seeking out people who, to your point, Mike, are passionate, committed to equality or equity, choose your word, by seeking out people who understand that differences, even though we have 99% of the same DNA, all of us, but our differences are what make us distinct and powerful as a nation, if you want to go there, but also as communities. When I put myself into places that respect those things, I now have more capacity to turn around and make sure that other people feel included, that other people feel seen, and other people feel heard. So my mission is to make sure that other people feel what I hopefully place myself into, which are communities of compassion and communities who are committed to not just money, fame, and power, but to using privilege, which we all have, to really change the culture. And I believe it can be done. I believe it can be done.
So I have to
Absolutely.
apologize because I lied to you. I said there was 3 things that drive mankind. I actually believe there's a 4th one, and I didn't share it with you because I was being snarky.
Yeah.
I
Go on,
believe
admit
in,
it. Admit it.
what happened. I admit my faults. Come on. In my career, there was something else that drove me. Yes, I needed to make money to raise my family, things like that. However, I believe there's the 4th thing is called payment of heart and head and soul. And those things you can't equate to money, power, and fame. Those things drive you. You're doing the right thing. You're helping people you don't even know because it's the right thing to do. And that's what drove me in my career. So now I'm giving you all 4, Greear. So thank you for answering so honestly. Very much
course.
appreciated.
Yeah, right.
Well, thank you,
And
Mike. I think those
Nick's-
questions were spot on. If I could just briefly, I think one way to maybe tie these things together, again, in lawyer fashion, right? Here trying to mediate in a way. I think what people maybe even are born or oftentimes say that they want to do is further positive change, right? I want to change my community. I want to change my family. I want to break generational curses. I want to feel loved. I want to feel appreciated. All the things I was talking about. I think some of the offshoots of those things that people then get addicted to are money, fame, and power. I don't think anyone's born wanting those 3 things. I think we become addicted to the idea of those 3 things after we start out wanting to help those around us, wanting to be the best son we can be, wanting to be the best brother we can be, the best father, the best employee. And then somewhere along the way, we're introduced to money, fame, and power, and they dissuade us from our true goal, which I believe should be helping those around us.
Excellent. Hey, thanks for spending time with us again. You're a fascinating young man. I look forward to following your career and your successes, which I believe you're going to have many.
Thank you. I appreciate
Back
you.
to you, William.
Yeah, I promise we're going to have it. Greear will be back on again. I promise you that. I'm inspired, and we all should be inspired by young people like that because often, society says, well, the young generation, they aren't doing anything. They aren't involved, and that's at the opposite. It couldn't be further from the truth. But I want to acknowledge, I'm going to Dr. Sims. Promise you, Dr. Sims, I know you have a lot to talk about. Questions, I see you writing there. And I'm excited about this young man, but I do want to acknowledge our audience. Delon, it's a Delon Fletcher that's listening, and also your grade through school teacher, Rock. I call her Rock, Raquel, a fascinating lady, and she is the program director for Groove Swing Speaks, and she's the reason why I met you, young man, and it's been an absolute pleasure. My sister Emma Brown, Ty Lorick, they're the recording artist I was telling you about, and he has a question. And also Patricia Miles. And let me go on here. I'd like to acknowledge Ty Shea. My goodness. Patricia Miles. She's also a recording artist. Viv Greer. And that's she said, I am Greer's Mimi. So proud of you. Is that your
Hey, Mimi.
My grandmother.
Yeah.
Hey,
Shay
Mimi.
Jones, Latrice Sparks. Yeah, Shay Jones, Latrice Sparks. Shay Jones is in music. You have some recording artist that's listening to you right now, young man. That is so cool
Wow.
because this is
Wow,
what
I'm
this is a
honored.
conversation for everyone. Oh
Right,
my
right.
God, this
That's
is
right.
great. But there is a question, Dr. Sims, before we go to you. Tylaric has a question,
Sure.
and if we can address that. Uh, and this is perhaps a left field question, but here it goes. As a retired law enforcement officer of 20 years, I have, of course, been in court. I have found myself asking a question when it comes to morality in respects to let's say a defense attorney and of course state attorneys or DAs and others. So my question is, and I do understand that a person here in the United States has a right to a fair trial, but in your opinion, how would you separate or advocate services for a person to whom was not
To whom you know
was
was not
innocent?
innocent.
Was not
Is the
innocent.
rest of that.
Was not innocent. Okay.
I can take that, and Miss Wooten Taylor will correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not all the way a lawyer yet.
Mhm.
First of all, Tyler, thank you for your service. Actually, William, could you post that question back up there just so I could reference it? Thank you.
Let me put it
So,
okay.
so thank you for your service as a retired law enforcement officer. I will say this, as I've said before on this network and others, the only specific type of attorney mentioned in our nation's constitution are defense attorneys.
Mm.
Mm.
That is the only type of attorney that is guaranteed to be a profession in the Constitution. And so that's one of the reasons I'm leaning toward being a criminal defense attorney. But I also think it's important that we ensure something that you put in your comment, Tylaric, and that is that everyone has a fair trial. We see the importance and even how great defense attorneys can be. I mean, look at the Sean Diddy Combs trial, right? He's not probably going to go to jail for more than 2 years.
That's what I was saying. I'm right there
If
with
that,
you.
he's probably going to walk free.
If that, and not only that, one of his attorneys, Attorney Brian Steele, who I know and respect, was involved in Georgia's longest criminal trial in our state's history, which concluded earlier this year or last year, involving YSL, which is a record label that the prosecutor painted as a gang. And almost the majority of those involved or charged in that trial, if not acquitted, were placed on probation. So they're out there. They were given another chance because it was found that they were not behind, the overwhelming majority of crime in Atlanta. Again, as the prosecution tried to paint them. Why were they able to be so successful here in Georgia and up in New York? Because there were great defense attorneys making sure that each part of the process, each step along the way, was fair. And Sean P. Diddy Combs still was convicted on 2 counts. Let's not get it twisted. However, the most serious counts he was not convicted on. And that in large part is due to his team. Of course, they were paid millions, but still his team of attorneys. To answer your question specifically, Tylaric, because I do want to hear from Dr. Sims and get to know her a bit better, I think yes is the answer. There is a difference between how we service those who may be not innocent. Either we think they're not innocent or they were found to be guilty. There's a different way that we message and talk to them. There's a different way that we support them. And just in my few short weeks last summer of working at the Federal Criminal Defender, the Federal Defender Program down here, which did federal criminal defense, many of our clients entered into plea agreements or plea deals, commonly called, where what we were doing is make sure that they had a fair sentence. We knew they were going to federal prison. We wanted to make sure they had a fair sentence. We also worked hard to make sure that they had the resources they needed. So we would visit our clients in prison. We would talk with their families. And if there was anything we could do to help, we would do that. And so the way that we service people, I think, does need to correlate to their particular condition at that time. I mean, it wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't make any sense to try and support someone who is innocent with the same resources we use to support people who are in prison, right? It wouldn't make sense to conduct prison ministries and put money on somebody's books who's not in prison. And so while the support is the same, the way we market that support and the way we service people needs to be tailored to their particular circumstance. That's one of the ways that we can make that support more powerful. And so I do think it is a tough conversation to have when we start talking about guilt and innocence and prisons. These are not places that people want to be, right? People don't want to be in a state of guilt. They don't want to have that on their record. They don't want to be generally in prison, because especially federal prisons are not great, healthy places.
Mm.
And so I'm not here to say everyone should go free. I'm here to say that everyone should be supported at whatever particular stage in life they find themselves. And that needs to differ. That support needs to differ based on the person being serviced circumstances.
And I want to add to that, William. You did an excellent job, of course, answering the question. But another thing, and this has been one of those things that there's been advocacy before, and I said it before I even knew people were advocating to get it changed. But if you look at the laws that we have, there's sort of a little loophole, so to speak, sort of an exception when it comes to slavery in regard to people going to prison. And when you think about what happens when a person goes to prison, traditionally, there's been work, like I said, to get these things changed, advocacy for it, but you would lose not only your freedom, but you would also lose your right to bear arms, which a lot of people don't get back here lately. They're trying to make those changes in a lot of states. You would also lose your right to vote, which is really important. And there are places that are trying to restore that to people who have gone to prison and who have gotten out of prison. So a lot of inalienable rights that we take for granted, that we're afforded by the Constitution, people who go to prison lose. So it is incumbent that you have somebody to help you protect those rights, especially if you are actually innocent. That is why due process is so important, and why it is so aggravating, and in a lot of respects terrifying to see due process being eroded at such a pace as being eroded in the last 6 months or so. When it comes to criminal law, because y'all know I don't practice criminal law. When I was in law school, my criminal law teacher, I loved reading the cases. I loved I loved learning about the criminal laws on the books at the time. But I was pretty adamant. This is not some place that I would be practicing law. I can't do it. I mean, listening to it, learning about it is awesome. But I could not allow myself to do it because that's not my gifting. That's not my calling. And I know it's not, because just like Greear, we had legal clinics and whatnot when I was in law school. And I remember being in clinic and us going to talk to clients who were mentally incapacitated and placed in a criminal facility for mentally incapacitated people. And we were trying to help those who were placed there unfairly, because, well, you're insane, so you just get to sit there and languish there. We don't have a regular sentence for you. And just talking to one particular client, he could tell by the look at my face and by my gaping mouth, I'm like, okay, this isn't fair, but you don't need to leave. That's what I'm sitting here thinking. He's like, you never done this before. I'm like, no, I am definitely a student. And I knew then this is not my gifting. I cannot work in this particular area, because you have to be able to zealously represent your clients. And it would be difficult for me to zealously represent you in this particular set of circumstances. So I truly do believe that you need the people like Greear, who can look at what is going on with a person, have compassion on them, like they made a mistake and blah 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 blah, and we make sure that they get a fair trial. Those type of lawyers are necessary for our legal system, for our way of life, our entire way of life, because it's the fabric of what this country is based on, as he mentioned, is in the doggone Constitution. And so when we start chipping away at that basic foundation of who we are, and we don't make allowances for people to at least get the due process they deserve, that's when we are going to be in serious trouble. And in other words, we are in serious trouble. Let me just go ahead and be blunt about it. We've got a serious problem going on. on the other hand, I think that it's also a gift for people who want to seek justice on the prosecution side, to make sure that communities are safe, to make sure that people pay for what they have done, that they provide restitution, that they serve their sentences. Those things have a place on both sides of the aisle. And it's the same thing even when we're talking about civil matters. If you are the plaintiff's attorney or if you're the defense attorney in a civil matter, you need both sides of that coin. The thing is where I think lawyers get a bad rap is where you have the people who just go into it for the power, just go into it for the money, just go into it for the prestige. And this isn't necessarily a gifting where you exercise what you've been given by the Lord to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Whether you're like me, who works in the area of unemployment insurance, and I preside over unemployment insurance hearing. I'm looking at the facts of the case about why this person lost their job, and I can be compassionate on the fact that you thought you had a really good reason for leaving, but legally speaking, you're not entitled to benefits. You need people like me, as well as people like Greear, as well as people like the folks who represented Sean Combs and the folks in the trial in Atlanta that he was talking about, in order for us to have a system that works. And the fact that we are disregarding not just the regular laws on the book, but the Constitution itself. I can't say it enough. We are a democratic republic. The fact that we are a republic means that we have based our country on this document. If the document is no longer in effect, then we no longer have a stable government, folks. That's my thing. But anyway, I'm done now. Dr. Sims, your turn.
You know what? I am about to burst over here, but I'm enjoying the dialogue. You are an extraordinary young man. I have to tell you that. You're extraordinary. And I'm listening to you and listening. And of course, I was jotting down all kinds of notes and especially in the mental health area. One thing that really stuck with me when you said you can't be what you can't see. And I thought about that and I wrote something down. I says, that's and I'm not going against anything that you said, but in my field, that is a broad statement with many, because what they've seen have seen travesties in their life, and you can't be what you can't see. And then I could parallel it if you want somebody to have an outcome of being good and polished, such as yourself, which is outstanding. And we need more young people like you. But I'm looking at the diversity in our culture and their way of thinking, and I'm looking at the backgrounds to which they were raised. A lot has to do with that. A lot of the young people, and I'm watching. I have a lot of grandchildren. Trust me. Okay, as many of us have a lot of young people that are around us. And yes, grandma has to do a little mentorship, but all the time, and you mentioned that a lot of times that even in the mentorship, a lot of them don't want to hear us senior citizens, okay, because they think that we don't know anything. If I can put that out there, I'm not putting you in that equation because I see different. But what I'm thinking is because of the ones that I'm around, and I too do a mentorship, even in mental health. I have to couplate both of them, getting to the mental issue as well as being a mentor. I don't know if you would agree with that because it's important that we do that, is to be a mentor. And sometimes we have to share some of our own roads of travel to make them understand that, you know what, I feel your pain. And there's so much stuff that I jotted down here. Let me get to my notes and stay on it. Outside, when I said a broad statement, outside influences is very strong. And I don't know how you feel about that. I'm going to pose that to a question to you. I don't know, why am I so nervous? Why am I nervous? Anyway, let me calm down. Okay, let me calm down. Okay, you about old enough to be my grandson. Let me hear it. Calm down. And come on back. Come on back.
Hey, Mimi number 2. You can answer your question.
Let me be myself. Miss Cece's on the floor here. Now,
Right.
listen. a broad statement. Okay, now you feel me. All right. You have outside influences that are quite strong. When you want a generation to really change their trajectory in thinking, because a lot of delusional pictures have been painted. Okay, when it comes to them trying to understand the day to day life, how they are to survive, how they're supposed to fit in, and how important that they are. We have a lot of negative people that are around them, and I'm not just saying just out in the streets. We have negative people in their homes. We have negative people in their churches. Okay, that gives negative influence, and I'm doing a lot of conscious listening now to some of the parents who are giving negative vibe to their children who want to improve. And this is not just something that just happened overnight. It's been done eons of time. I'm a witness. Had that done where you have parents, someone such as yourself, if you were, and I don't know, I don't think you're suffering that, but somebody who wants to come out of the influence of the hood. You understand? I know you know where I'm going, right?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
want to better themselves, and they want to come out of the hood, and then you have somebody that is supposed to be a positive influence on you, help you come out of that. Thus they are causing some mental duress in the child or whoever they're dealing with. And so we have to deal with the mental health and the cause, and also the direction that is coming from.
Right.
And one of the things that I wanted to ask you this question: do you believe that at this time, with our young people, delusional pictures have been painted? The real truth has not been told. What is your take on that? On certain incidences and things that are going on in the world, because we're living in a time, and the reason why I ask this question is because we're living in a time where we have a young people that is energetic and want to get it resolved, and so they go on half truths, don't know all of the ramifications behind statements. What would you do? First, do you believe in that, and then what would you advise them to do before they have a mental collapse? What do you give them kind of tools to have to prevent them from having that kind of anxiety? Is what I'm trying to ask.
Sure, sure. So I have two responses. First, I'm gonna just get a little political just for a moment because Brother Brown told me I can speak my mind. It's hard for young people. It's hard for young people to delineate between truth and delusion, as you put it, or in Gen Z slang, delulu. It's hard for young people I'm keying y'all into some Gen Z and even Gen
Okay.
Alpha
Right,
language.
right, right.
All
It's
right.
hard for young people based on what they're learning, right? Even in schools, as we see what is being done with Black and even Latino history, to differentiate
Okay.
between truth and delusion. When the president of the United States put statements on a social media platform called Truth Social that are untruths.
Mm.
Amen.
So, what I'm trying to
Amen.
say, that was a little snarky. What I'm trying to say is it
But
goes
true.
back to role models and leadership. And let me go back to something you were saying, Dr. Sims, because I was actually taking some notes as well. Uh, Language does matter. So I'm actually going to nix what I just said. Our founder at Sidekicks, he doesn't believe in role models. He doesn't believe in that language.
Mm,
The reason why, and I should have known better,
mm,
is because he paints a picture like this. Role models are people you see but can't touch.
mm,
So
Mm.
for me, Michael Jordan is a role model. LeBron
mm,
James, role model, right? A lot of celebrities are people's role model.
Mhm.
I don't know,
mm,
Jay-Z, role model, Beyonce, role
mm.
model. I don't have their number. I can't call them,
Right.
but I have
Right.
Miss Wooten Taylor's number now. I can call her.
Amen.
She's a positive image in my life now. So
Mhm.
let's start using the term positive image maybe versus role model, because
You
role
got it.
model brings that connotation of celebrity and I want to be like them, but you don't even know them. You know
Right.
Mhm.
them
Right.
generally. And so that goes back to what you were saying, Dr. Sims, and it may have been an overgeneralization on my part. I also want to also give credit where credit is due. The quote, "You can't be what you can't see," is actually one from Marion Wright Edelman, who was a civil rights activist who founded the Children's Defense Fund. So let's
Mhm.
do a little bit real-time editing, Dr. Sims. I might change that to be more accurate to say it's harder to be what you can't see,
Mhm.
right? It's harder to be what you can't see. So when we have parents who are treating their students, and we have very probably some of the young people that you're talking about, right? Maybe some of your clientele even parents and young people alike in Durham, who are part of our program, who we encourage to use positive language to positively reinforce behaviors in their children. A lot of those parents cannot positively reinforce because they weren't positively reinforced.
Indeed.
They were talked down to, they were beaten, they were traumatized. And so
Indeed.
without any type of intercession, they can't be different. What we see, however, is when we have positive images who turn into mentors paired with resources, that is where we can see a difference. That's where that change comes in my mind. Okay, person A is a parent. Person B is the child. Person A was traumatized by their parent. Person A was beaten without explanation by their parent. Person A grew up in an environment, another word you use, Dr. Sims, that was not healthy. So what is person B going to do or pass down? Excuse me. What is person A going to do or pass down to person B? Traumatization, probably an unhealthy environment, and perhaps, some type of physical or verbal abuse, because that's what they experienced. However, person A and a half, mentor A and a half, who comes in and better equips that parent, while sometimes also helping better equip the child, who says, hey, you don't have to do it this way. I know it's going to take some unlearning, but we want what's best for you and your child. We know you're the parent.
Right.
I am not your child's parent, but we want better for you and the child. Here are ways to meet in the middle. When I say meet in the middle, I don't mean perpetuate trauma. I mean, allow the parent to parent, but give them resources as an outside figure that will allow for a healthier child. And so I say all that to say, I agree with you. It's harder to be what you can't see. That's more accurate. And there has to be some type of intercession done, whether that's by a mental health expert or a positive image, to get parents to treat their children better than the parent was treated. Otherwise, to me, they're not just going to automatically, magically on their own say, you know what, I don't want to do that. Now, there are some parents out there, I would call them the outliers, who think back to their childhood and maybe their whole lives have thought, when I have children, I'm not going to be like my parents. That is statistically a minority, because most people reinforce what they were taught. So when you live 20, 30 years of your life being taught or learning one thing, it's very hard for people, in my experience, from the interviews I've done with some of our parents and children, to automatically start doing things differently. That's why those positive images / mentors / intercessors are so important. Now, I'll round that out by saying, yes, I do think there's a serious issue with truth versus Delulu, and people are crazy and confused in this country. Again,
I love that word.
more of a meet in the middle moment. I think we need better leadership. We need better positive images. I also think we need young people to open their minds to think differently, open their minds to older generations of Americans. And I mentioned that at the top, I think it may have been before you joined us, Dr. Sims, that I'm a proponent of intergenerational change. So I believe that young people need to open our ears. We need to listen to older Americans because they have been where we have been. I also think, however, that older Americans need to just, to use a phrase from Mike earlier, shift their perspective a bit or challenge their own perspectives a bit and say, okay, young people are not all lazy. Most young people are not lazy. Young people are not confused. Young people are not just out here aimlessly drifting, right? Most of us didn't know where we were at 10. So when we're standardized testing 10-year-olds and expecting them to know exactly what profession they're going into, that doesn't compute for me, right? Because I was given the freedom and ability, that's a privilege, to not have to commit at that age. And you all probably didn't have to commit to a profession at that age. Now, again, there are outliers. If your family grew up farming or grew up doing certain blue collar work, sometimes it's expected that the child is to do that. Generally, however, I think it's fair to say that at 10 years old, you weren't made to do what you ended up doing. First of all, the mental health profession, right, Dr. Sims, looks so different than it did when you were growing up, even when I was growing up. So that wasn't even probably a position. And so for me, what I think is most important when it comes to truth, and I alluded to the fact that in some states, Florida namely, they are trying to teach differently, right? And maybe not tell the whole truth, which to me is lying.
There it is. There it is. Call a spade a spade.
Okay, now
We
that
have
part.
to ensure, however, that people, again, going back to what I talked about with Mike, are seen, heard, and appreciated. So these people out
Wow.
here who are saying, well, we need to start teaching differently, I don't think it's working. Let's hear why. Let's see your data. Maybe they're right in certain aspects, but when you start to twist the truth, that's where I now have a problem, and I have to challenge you and ensure that you're not baking into policy, in this case, public policy, lies. And
Mm-hmm.
That
so when
part.
we start talking about, not teaching slavery for what it was, which was a horror, when we
Right.
start to say, well, now we're not even going to talk about the Holocaust for what it was, another
Right.
horror, I have a problem. That's not a
Right.
racial thing. It makes no sense why anyone would start trying to
That's
teach
history.
history
That's history.
differently than
Yeah.
I was taught it 10 years ago.
Right.
Slavery, bad.
Mm-hmm.
Holocaust, bad.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that's German that's living in 2025, not bad. Everyone who
Right.
is white who's living in 2025, not bad. However, there were white people predominantly who enslaved black folks in America. That was bad. Those actions were bad. See, that goes
Yeah.
back to the distinction I made
Right.
earlier of
Right.
people versus
Right.
Exactly.
action. The Germans who perpetuated the Holocaust, and even the Americans who kind of turned a blind eye when they really knew what was going. Again, that's a generalization. Those actions, bad.
Mm.
And so, how we cope and react matters. In Germany, they don't have statues of Hitler and they don't have statues of
There it
former
is.
concentration
That's right.
camps. Yet we still have Robert E. Lee statues up and Confederate statues up in this country. Why? I
And
don't
have
know.
holidays named after them. Yep.
Yeah,
So
and you know what? And
that
you
goes back
seeing
to that
that,
meet in
yeah,
the middle, common sense type
right,
ideology that I think is missing. Sorry for the
right.
tangent.
No, that's that's
Mhm.
okay.
Love
Tangent is
it.
merited. When I think about what is going on in society today, and I'm looking at the young people, my heart really goes out to them. Period.
Mhm.
And you said something, even though some of us came up through the rough side of town, and I say that in all honesty, and I really, I'm very faith based. I love me some Jesus, okay, and
Amen.
so
Amen.
I believe that God brings some of us that have been through some things so that we can better understand
Mm.
those that are out there who are suffering. I'm watching, and I'm a visual individual when it comes to people's behavior and their reactions on certain things. And when I see the dynamics of young people and even some of the older ones who, and I'll say it like this, acting silly because they are,
Mm.
a lot of
Mhm.
them, their behavior is not as such as being someone I would use as an influence on anybody,
Mhm.
period, because of their actions. And my thing is this is that we have some mentors that need to be mentored. I'll just say it.
Mm,
Okay, we
Uh-oh.
have some
mm.
therapists that need to be go to do some sessions because
Yes.
we have some
Say it.
issues, and
Mhm.
they project their own inner issues on the
Mhm.
candidate that
Mhm.
they are mentoring, that's causing a greater delusional effect in the individual to the point where, and I believe that some of the young people who have been sitting under some of these charlatans, I'm not trying to get real graphic because I can and no I will, but anyway, they call them slewfoot, bow leg, and cross-eyed. Okay, it is what it is, and
That's
they
slew
think they
foot
have a
though.
handle on something, and they don't. And a lot of them are speaking out of hatred, and
Mhm.
they are speaking out of wanting to control a
Yes.
group of young people to the point where they are not able to see correctly of what's really going on. One of
Mhm.
the things I do encourage them: open your eyes, take the blinders off, and see what's real. Learn what is real. You brought up something about our history. History is a great tool that we can use for how far we've come that allowed us to bring change today. And so we have to keep reiterating that. A lot of folks, and I was sitting on my couch yesterday, saying, they want to hide the truth. They don't want a lot of us to know exactly what the truth is. And my basic word, they don't want to be accountable to their deeds.
Mm.
How are we going to treat a young people to be a prosperous group of young people and to walk in wisdom, be accountable when you have people who are standing before you don't want to be accountable? I'm talking about from the White House to outhouse. That's my baby. Okay, from the White House to the outhouse, that don't want to be accountable for their behavior.
Right.
And my thing is, a lie is a lie. Half lie is a lie. It is what it is. And see, you're getting all of this sort
Mhm.
of behavior then you're getting a group of young people who want to be, you said something, you said people want to be loved and included. And I agree with that wholeheartedly, being loved and included. But the voices that are coming out now, the voices of disturbance because of what they've seen and what they've heard and what they've learned, and they've been given half truths. They have not been able to share their voice in these wicked appetites in the home, among parents or whatever, person was over them. So they bring that out, and I'm looking at all the anger that was pent up, and they're free to share this anger because mommy and daddy's not around, you understand? So they got a group of folks and they come in and they uh, want to destroy some things. But that's pent up anger from the things that they've endured as children on up to this present time. Many of them, I'm not saying all of them,
Right.
but
Well, and I
the
would say
Bible.
too,
Go ahead.
I would say just to your point about people who, speak out of or speak from a place of hatred or speak from a place of being uneducated. I would also say those mentors who need to be mentored are speaking out of turn because we really don't have time. It's not anyone's. It's there's there are too many important issues of the day that Ms. Wooten Taylor already laid out for people to be speaking negatively to the current and future leaders, specifically the future leaders. So when
Amen.
you're speaking from a place of hatred, when you're speaking from a place of not knowing what you're talking about, when you're speaking from a place of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
you're also speaking out of turn because it's not time for that.
Hmm.
You, and you made me think of a quote. Now, this is my quote. When you were speaking about people who need to be mentored and therapists who need to go to therapy, people oftentimes project what they need to correct.
All right. All
You're,
right.
Period.
you're talking
Yes.
about projection. Now, correct me if
Yes.
I'm wrong, because you are the expert here. People need to stop projecting what they need to correct. So, if you know that you have something going on in your life that is unaddressed, now, sometimes people don't know this.
Mm-hmm.
If you have something going on in your life where you know you're not going to be able to show up for the young person you've been assigned to mentor, if you have some lack of knowledge, because we can't know it all,
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
and yet you purport to be an expert in that field, we have a problem because now you're imparting faulty wisdom
Right.
onto people into or onto uh, people who don't know any better at all. And
Mm-hmm.
so when it comes to mentors and therapists, we should really demand the best of the best. And it's also important to have a diverse set of therapists who people can go to who may have their same shared life experiences or lived experiences, excuse me. And I'll round this point out by saying that not everyone goes through life the same way. None of us on this call were brought up the
Exactly.
same way. None of us on this call have lived the or worked in the same profession, but there are some common truths that we really should hold on to. Compassion
Mm-hmm.
is one of them, right?
Hmm.
Truth telling is another one of them. We all need to be supported, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that can include challenge. That's what I really want people to understand in the minutes we have left, that supporting people doesn't mean you have to agree with them all the time.
Right.
It just means you have to understand where they're coming from. And if you can't understand where someone is coming from, if you can't hold a conversation with someone without becoming emotional or extremely agitated, and they're doing nothing but sharing their experience, it's different if they're cussing you out. But
Right.
it's
Right.
when they are coming to you for
Ooh.
support, it is up
Right.
to you to compassionately challenge them
Hmm.
at the very most. If not, just be a listening ear. When folks start debating from a place of emotion instead of from a place of facts and lived experience, that's where we really go astray. And that actually
Exactly.
shows, my pastor has a quote down here in Atlanta. If you can't tell, audience, I'm a quotes guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he
All right.
borrowed this quote from someone else, but uh, it just says, I don't, I want to get the quote right, but it says, I only debate my equals, right? I
Mhm.
only debate my equals because it's important to understand that people who are coming to you, that just means people come to you from an equal footing. If people are coming to you just to come for you, or if they're projecting their insecurities, or if they're coming in a hateful manner, in a spiteful manner, to me, and this is something I had to learn, it's not up for debate. I've just got to understand who's in my corner and who I'm just going to have to let the Lord work on in some cases.
That part.
And
That part.
Exactly.
be a little bit
Man.
specific. I like to group people into 3 categories, and I'll kind of leave this as an exit ticket, if you will, or something that all 3 of you can challenge, all 4 of you can challenge. I like to group people into 3 categories. One is your ardent supporters. They're going to be with you, your ride or dies, if you will. These are people.
All right.
These are people who are not Delulu. These are people who know what they're talking about. They're going to support
Exactly.
you through thick and thin. Then you have the fence sitters. The fence sitters,
Ooh.
people in the middle. They could be swayed over to support you, but they could go the other way and be against you. Then you have people all the way out in left field who are going to be against you no matter what.
No matter what.
Against you no matter what.
Zealots.
Spend the majority of your time on those first 2 categories of people. People get it twisted and they get upset and they get angry and they start going down a dangerous dark path when they spend all of their time debating the people who were against them from the beginning.
Right.
Spend your time on the people in your corner, supporting them, boosting them up, and try and get some of those fence sitters to your side. But going and approaching people who are always against you is just going to make you emotional. And at that point, you're not debating. Now, I did some real-time fact checking because I am in Gen Z. The phrase, I only debate my equals, actually has a second part. All others I teach.
All
All
right.
others
All right.
I teach. And that's
Love
a
it.
quote from Dr.
I
John
Love it. Love
Clark.
it. Love
And that
it.
was just a black man, an American, I believe, who was passionate about mentorship and about ensuring that all people, specifically Black Americans, had access to education. So sit with that, if you will, audience. I only debate those coming to me from equal footing. All others I teach.
All right.
You know,
All
I'm
right.
going to
Right.
take that. I'm going to take that, Mr. Greer. That is
Yes.
awesome because here's, and I'll make this final statement. And you were saying about the ones on the fence. I somewhat don't trust a lot of them on the fence. And the reason why, going to the scriptures, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. He's subject to change today and shift tomorrow. And so my thing is that first one I'm going to take a hold of. I know the last one is real. Okay. They're not going to believe you, whatever. Okay. Even if you're
Right.
right. And I've come across that. And I've made up my mind. I'll just make this statement. Even just today, you know, I have my moments, my prayer time and my meditation time. Even just today, I said, I am not going to waste, and this is a country saying, the way they say it, spit and win on people who do not want to see the truth and change, even though the truth is in their faces. And so you're beating your head against the rock and this, that, and the other. And what I do now is I leave them in the hands of the Lord for them to make the
Amen.
conscious decision because
Amen.
He is the convictor of it all. And my
Amen.
thing is it with the young people, and that's my whole baby right now is the young people and the manipulation because they're going through some things in school as well. I mean, we've got to. My whole thing is praying for them because I can't get to everybody. I'm just being a general here, and so I think that if we would not be so preoccupied with our own situation and be a little more caring about the person next door or around the corner, I think that would help us a lot. But I think what and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we need to get wisdom out there. Okay, we need to
Right.
get
Right.
actually put it down on put it down, even though it's on paper, like you said, there's going to be some that's not going to believe it. I don't care. They'll tell you blue is red and you tell them no, it's blue. And they're just going to be like that because that's their persona.
Yes.
And those wars I don't fight because
Right.
they are led in their mind what they want to believe. And then you have those who want you to believe what they want you to believe. I'm not that way either. And you have to understand people need to make up their own decisions and their own minds. I think what needs to be also interjected that teach them to do research, go out there and do research and find out what it is. Don't just take somebody's word for it because of the position that they hold. That don't mean that they're always walking in truth. You
Right.
have a lot of deception who are acting in control. And I really believe that it should be taught to be led by your own mind. Social media can be a very handicap
Yes.
in the dispensation because
Yes.
they are in the method of controlling this. One little short snippet: the babies are being addicted to media. I mean, you see them in sleeping during their hands and like they're on media, and so it's almost like they're going through a crack withdrawal. I've worked the
Yeah, it can be that bad.
take away
Mhm.
these things from the children, and then you have mothers who are laughing at the children. You have all sorts of distorted behavior that is going on today, and I'm in this mode that maybe better tools need to be developed to deal with the mental health issues, as you talked about earlier. We cannot the what I used to use, oh goodness, maybe 10, 15 years ago, it's not that much effective. Okay, I've got to come up with new way of dialoguing with this educated young people, because they're very educated, they're wise, and their wisdom, but even the Bible says, but they're weaker. Okay, and so we have to deal with that aspect, and that's where wisdom comes in. So I applaud you,
Yes.
sir. There's a lot of things that I wrote down, and I agree that people want to be loved and included. We got to get the ones who have the need to control, therefore they cause delusional pictures being painted so that they can continue with the control. They know that they're liars. I'm just going to be real, okay? They know that they're lying, okay? But they are addressing a people who are ignorant in certain areas. And you said something about parents. They teach on the level of their understanding as well, what they were taught down through. We've been domesticated, should I say, for eons of time, for it to be in the backwoods kind of knowledge, and that just doesn't fly anymore. You have children who are uneasy in their minds. How do we deal with the sense of entitlement? How do we deal with all that? There's a whole lot of things that I'm facing when I'm mentoring, constantly mentoring someone, because it's like a drug. They don't even have to take the drug, but it's like a drug for them
Right.
to control in that area. And I'm gonna say this to you, Mr. Greer. Is that how you say your last name? I
Yes,
forget.
that's right.
You have, and the will, Ann knows that the church is my wheelhouse. You got slew foots, cross eyes up in there acting silly because they want to control. They paint delusional pictures. So there's a whole gamut of things that's going on that is causing an uneasiness and an unrest just in people in general. People now hardly don't know which way to turn. Okay, where you said you love the Lord, you know where to go, because that's, you're getting fed, what have you. But for the most cases, folks said, no, this is not it. And I don't want to get all the way into church because it parallels to me with what's going on in the world. And so I can't separate it. But I really believe that maybe some of our methods possibly need to be changed, and how to reach those who are in troubled mind. So I'll just turn that over to you, sir. But I appreciate you. I would love for you to meet my son, the one that Mike met. I would love to get both of you together. I'm just putting it out there, okay?
Yes, I
And
would love that. I know we're wrapping, Brother Brown, but I'll just say, look, in closing, take what you like and leave the rest, right? Each of you, all four of you have challenged me on something I've said tonight, and that's great. That's good. It makes me think harder. So take
not to
this is
make
what
you
the
feel
audience
bad
needs
or
to hear.
anything, okay?
Take what you
Yeah.
like
But
from our conversation.
before you go, Greer, I have one last thing. If you have a few minutes, I want you to address, and it's one of the most important things that that's important to me,
Mhm.
if you will. And thank you, Dr. Sims, Mike, and Ann, for your brilliant questions. I really appreciate that and your comments. Um, let's talk about the elephant. If you take a few minutes and talk about the elephant that's in uh, the room, and that's DEI. I want you to address it up, because I want your opinion about that, because my sister put up something earlier, and she said my mother was my role model, and a lot of people, not only athletes or actors or singers or whatever it is, they take some of these politicians as their role model, and so what happens is that they allow these people to convince them illogically in a lot of cases that what is good is bad, you
Mm.
know, and what is right is wrong. And so
Mhm.
I look at DEI. I really want you to clear it up because a lot of people have a misconception about DEI, and they don't realize that because of DEI is the reason why we have some of the amenities and not only the benefits and progress, whether it comes from architecture, education, medical, whatever it is, because of DEI. Yet they have bastardized that acronym to mean something bad, when it is proven that with diversity, equity, and inclusion, okay, you have a more productive society, a healthier society, and a happier society. And I like for you to really clear the air on that, because they say, oh, it's a DEI hire. Well, you know what? I look at the current administration, and it should be some DEI in that administration because no one in this administration knows what they are doing. Mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. They said, well, we're going on um, merit. Well, I'm looking at the current administration, and these people are totally unqualified. I'm looking at it from the Secretary of State to the Department of Defense to the DOJ to everyone. I want you to address and please tell people, why do you think that DEI is important?
Sure. So just to wrap what I was saying earlier, take what I say today, take what you like and leave the rest. I'm going to edit that because I love this real-time editing we've been doing, Dr. Sims. Take what you like and research the rest. Okay. Don't leave the rest, please. Research the rest and form your own opinion. All four of the people on this show tonight have challenged me in one way or another. I've been taking notes. I know Dr. Sims was taking some notes, and this is going to reform how we're thinking about these issues. And so one of the best ways to break through that mold, Dr. Sims, you were talking about, where children in particular, but even adults, as Mike mentioned, feel overwhelmed and like they can't turn anywhere, is to have conversations like these. Right? Grab a coffee with somebody, grab a meal with somebody, show them that there are people out here who still have hope, who don't agree on everything, but we do agree in the power of love. We agree that things need to be just. We believe that everyone should have a fair chance to be successful, to provide for themselves. Start with the basics. So take what I have said tonight, take what you like about that and research the rest, right? Keep pushing yourself to think differently, to think more inclusively, to think more justly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see if I can do this in 3 minutes. I know we've been overgeneralizing a lot tonight, but that's just how people talk. So let me say this. A lot of people say, oh, that's a DEI hire. When people say that, DEI transforms into meaning definitely earned it. That's the DEI. Definitely earned it. Because most of the time when they say, oh, that's a DEI hire, they're saying that about a Black or a brown person they don't think is qualified because the qualifications may look differently than what they envisioned for the role. So also, let me say, the only way or reason that we're having this call tonight is because of DEI. Because we are a diverse set of people who 60 or 80 years ago, I'm not sure. I'm not great at math because I'm in law school.
Right.
Would not have allowed
We don't go to med school.
I tell people I liked math until it got hard. We would not have been allowed to have this conversation with some type of, again, here's the word, intercession and interceding, interjection of justice, of equity, of an ideological movement of inclusion that was spurred on by grassroots movement leaders like Dr. King, but also like Ella Baker and some of the overlooked mothers of the civil rights movement. So when people say, oh, DEI must die, that is actually ridiculous. DEI took root in moments like affirmative action.
Right.
Fact check me on this. White women actually benefited from the most.
Yes.
They were given the most opportunity to go to college because of affirmative action. They were hired disproportionately at disproportionate rates, more so than any other color of anybody into the workplace. And so when we talk about DEI, most of the time people are just using that to talk about Black or brown people they don't want to. I mean, let's just be real. And we see this from the top down, the way that President Trump speaks about people. Oh, that's it. bad question, or to a white reporter, even he doesn't like. That's an evil question. Why would you ask
Mhm.
that?
Mhm.
But to Black people like Maxine Waters or Jasmine Crockett, who I don't
Mhm.
agree with on everything, oh, you are low IQ. You
Yes.
have
Yes.
intelligence.
Every
These might get
time.
more personal. You are one who just wants to stir up things because you
Mhm.
come from a place of destruction, and from a place where it's okay to get away with doing any and everything. And that's not necessarily true. And so,
Right.
long story short, as I conclude here, DEI to me is necessary because, let's break the words down. Diversity. Well, we've all agreed that differences in the ways that we approach things and our different upbringings and backgrounds can actually create a stronger community.
Mhm.
Equity or inclusion, again, pick your E. I don't know why that's even debatable. That we should all have
Right.
the same shot at success. That we should all have the same level of protection from our police. We should all have the same
Right.
education and level of education in our schools. We should all have the same uh, health care. And
Mhm.
when I say that, I mean we should be serviced the same. We should be served the same way by the doctor, no
Exactly.
matter the color of our skin. And inclusion. We've all agreed on this call tonight that people want to feel included, seen,
Mhm.
heard, and appreciated, valued, loved, treated with compassion. These are basic ideas. And again, words matter. The reason you're not hearing what I just said talked about at the national level is because people, back to Mike's point, would rather just put themselves into certain camps, and to Dr. Sims' point, operate in their own echo chambers rather
Mhm.
than get to the heart of the issue. What
Mhm.
do people not like about DEI? Is it, to Mike's valid point, that people don't want to just think of it as tossing money at an issue broadly, or is it something different? Because not this many people had an issue with it. At least they weren't as vocal about it in 2020 when it
Right.
really,
Right. Right.
and when all these companies made these pledges to donate
Mhm.
money. And those pledges were actually targeted pledges in many cases. We're going to invest in Black owned businesses. We're going to
Mhm.
invest in Black and brown suppliers because we know there is a disproportion. There's a deficit there, right? There's a
Mhm.
disparity, is the word I was looking for. We're going to invest in Black banks because we know that historically they have not been supported. We're going to
Right.
actually invest in making sure that cities and municipalities hire Black and brown police officers because there's a disparity there. We
Mhm.
want to actually make sure that people are being paid for the work they're doing. That includes
Mhm.
police officers because when people are
Mhm.
angry, they don't treat people well. So these are basic ideas that DEI has become the boogeyman for. And
Mhm.
again, to me, if you break down the words and make people tell you to your face, well, what's wrong with diversity? What's wrong with difference? What's wrong with equity or equality? What's wrong with inclusion? Do you not want to be included? Do you want to just be cast out to the outskirts of society? Do you
Right.
want to have the opportunity to have a partner or to have children or to have a community or be part of a faith-based congregation? Do you want to just live in isolation? So I'm over by a minute here because it seems like we have a bunch of people lovers and preachers on this call. So I'm right on par. But at the end of the day, it comes back to people. I want people to have opportunity to succeed.
Mhm.
Now, let me be clear. Your color doesn't matter to me, but I understand that historically people have been treated differently because of their color. So I don't buy into this
Right.
idea that systemic racism is dead and gone. It still exists,
Right.
and we can see that. That's another conversation. It all comes back to how we treat people and whether or not
Right.
we understand where others are coming from. And so when
Mhm.
I come to this conversation and say, hey, DEI is a good thing, it might have its flaws. I don't think we should just be throwing money around, but there should be protections in place for those in this country who have been historically discriminated against. And you respond to me by saying, oh, no, it's got to go away. I'm not even going to listen to your argument on that. That goes back to what we were saying earlier. You're not coming from a place of understanding. You're coming from a place of preconceived notions and judgment. And that's
Mhm.
not a recipe for success at all. So maybe that was too extensive, Brother Brown, but those are a few of my thoughts on it.
Nope.
And again, as I said in the comments tonight, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to challenge me on that. Feel free to fact check me. But at the end of the day, we all deserve a chance to succeed. And that looks different for different people. And so the way that we tailor these resources, the way that we talk, the way that we support one another also must look different. But it should be done in a way that uplifts and motivates people to be better versions of themselves.
William, can I add something to
Well,
that?
Greer, yes, you can in a second. and I'm going to do this. I'm throwing my head in the ring. Greer A. Webb, President 2032. Dan?
I was just gonna say, to piggyback off what Greer just mentioned, and you said something earlier about when history is not taught to truthfully in the classroom. That is another one of those things that will help these folks to perpetuate this lie to themselves about why affirmative action / DEI, because they use those terms interchangeably, in my opinion, why they are quote unquote bad things. If you basically dissect history to exclude the Holocaust, to exclude slavery, to exclude what's been happening to people who've been living in South America and why they may want to seek a better life in the United States, and the fact that we've been encouraging people to give me your poor, give me your uneducated, that we've been encouraging you to give us these folks, because here you get a shot at a better life. Then it makes it a whole lot easier for you to say that, oh, it's this particular group's fault, it's that particular group's fault. Folks, the whole point of history is to teach you, and in a very real way, to make you compassionate towards others. If you read a history book and you find out about, I don't know, if we want to talk about the revolution that took place in Europe when people were being oppressed and they rose up against their monarchs, start cutting off folks' heads and whatnot. That gives you an idea of how compassion towards your fellow man may help to make a better society. It doesn't mean you have to feel bad like you did it yourself. I think that is a cop-out for doctoring history books. Like, it makes white people feel bad because you teach them about slavery. Well, did you enslave somebody today or yesterday? Then we are not talking about you, are we? Just
No.
like I can feel bad, when I watch the Diary of Anne Frank, it makes me sad too when I watch and see how they were oppressed, how they were killed, how they were tortured, how they were experimented on. But I didn't do it. It teaches me empathy. It teaches me compassion, and it teaches me what not to do in this life. It doesn't mean that I feel guilty about it. So anybody that's trying to tell you that that's what history does, and that's why we have to take a pen,
And they've been saying that, Anne.
lying.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing in
Yeah,
Florida,
they've
and
been
that's what they're
saying
doing
it.
all over the country.
Yes.
Right.
Telling you that you're making them feel bad. Nobody's making you feel bad about anything. We are teaching you facts. And if the facts make you feel empathy, sympathy, compassion, guess what? You are human. Get
Right.
over it. That's what humanity is. Now, what you do with it from that point forward, I think is the issue, because when you are feeling those emotions, it's challenging what you've been taught to think in your homes, in your communities. So if I'm feeling sorry for this group of people because of the way that they were treated, maybe it's wrong for me to think, oh, all black people are bad. Oh, all brown people are bad. Oh, all the brown people coming to America are trying to take over the country, or these people are all violent, or all, saying evil things about people who are Jewish or Asian. That is the crux of the problem. Your emotional state is in conflict with this ideology that has been taught to you by whomever or whatever your circumstances were. That's why we need education. That's why we need to teach people the truth. Because if we are ever going to come together as a culture, which I think is the biggest problem, the world collectively is becoming more and more one culture collectively, instead of this group of ethnic people, this group of races or whatnot. The more that we reach out to each other globally, that's why globalism is hated so much, the more we become one as a people. And there's a whole lot of folks that don't like that. And one
Right.
of the ways to root that out is by doctoring history.
And can I just say this one little bitty?
You're
Oh, he's got
just
to
real
go.
quick, that phenomenon that you are describing is just another example of people projecting what they should be correcting. And to
Right.
William's point, I know we got to go. I know Dr. Sims is going to make a
No,
comment, but I just had to follow up on what William was saying to me earlier about him throwing my hat in the ring for me in about 10 years. I'm going to throw all of 4 of y'all's hats in the ring too, in
Watch it
true
now.
politician form, and say I'm going to be expecting donations because you can't do this without money. If y'all are saying this now, I'll be coming back in about 10 years. You'll be hearing from me.
You
All
got
right,
my
sir.
check. You
All
got my
right,
check.
sir.
I already
All
put
right.
it.
You
I
got
no,
it.
already
You
put
got
it.
yeah,
it.
we
I
have a
got
few minutes to
my
go,
vote.
but I understand that you're pressed for time, Greer. Now we'll be on for another 7 minutes, but I
Thank you, sir.
understand. Thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. One of my favorite broadcasts that we've done, and we've been doing this
Yes.
for 10 years. One of my
Mhm.
favorites,
Mhm.
and you are one of my favorite guests, my friend. You'll hear from me again. I have your number on speed
Mhm.
dial. Okay.
I
Lord.
appreciate it. Y'all have a
Oh,
great
Feel
evening.
free to
Lord.
call.
Thank
All
you,
Change your
right.
sir.
number.
Thank you,
Change
Greer.
your number, Greer.
What an amazing.
Well, you know what? I just want to say
Yeah,
this too, William,
please
if I
go
may.
on.
Okay.
Please go on.
I'm piggybacking on Ann, and DEI would be a good source, and I believe. Listen, folks, I sat there and watched Hidden Figures 3 straight times, right back to back to back. And what I
Hidden
didn't see
Figures.
the
What's that?
first thing, it's the NASA, the 3 women who worked in NASA behind the backgrounds. Watch the movie; it is
Okay.
excellent. Okay, and what they did was the jealousy because of their ingenuity, and that was DEI as far as I was concerned, because there still was a separation even in that time with NASA. For those of you that have watched that movie, I watched it 3 times straight. The third time I
Wow.
started crying, and the reason why I did that, I'm such a crybaby, oh God. But anyway, I started crying because this stuff is still going on today, where you keep people hidden, but yet you use their talents. And so
Yes.
I think that
Mm,
is a travesty that we endure. We have a resilient people, a smart people. And I was thinking, I was praying to God, I said, if everybody would just walk into their lane, what a fantastic world this will be, that
Mhm.
we would who over here do mathematics, whoever here works marketing, who does this and that, and I'm just using those areas, who knows how to till the land and grow things, and you know teach parenting. If we would just work in harmony, but we have some sick folks up there who does not want a people to get together
Mhm.
because they lose control, and that's what it is all about, is control. And so
Money,
they,
power, fame.
yes, they keep foolishness going. And so, like, watch that movie, Hidden Figures. It had to do with NASA, and Taraji is mathematic whiz, and to the point
Mhm.
where even the one who was over her was so jealous, and and you can see the envy. And I believe a lot of us are held back, and I'll just say it like this in general, are held back because of who we are.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's just actual facts here. That feeling has not gone, it has settled down, but it has not gone away. And I think if we all be accountable to our behavior and our thoughts and our feelings, we would change some things in the way we think and what we do. Because I said this and I was talking out loud to myself. You'd think I was retarded or something, but I'm not. But I was talking out loud. I says, I've got my own mind. I have
Mhm.
my own opinion. I can rationale for myself.
Mhm.
Because I don't believe or take and jump at what you tell me that you want me to believe, doesn't mean that I'm not qualified to understand what is going on around me. And
Mhm.
this is what I'm talking out loud, because we so busy trying to choke stuff down people's throat, okay, and make you believe that I'm going to believe what you believe. No, and then we have a separation. We need to stop that. We have an enslaved people that are enslaving people. Let's just be
Mhm.
real, okay? And it is still going on.
Mhm.
Because I don't believe you, if I don't grasp a hold of the concept right now, don't put me in a box over there, or throw me across the street. I have my own mind.
Mhm.
I've had my own research. I do what I want to do as far as getting knowledge and wisdom. But
Mhm.
because I don't accept what you say, still don't try to make. I'm not your conquest. I'm just gonna say it like that. I
Mhm.
am not your conquest. I'm putting it out there. Anybody. I'm not you for you. Oh, you won me over. I got her. No, you don't. Boo boo. You
Mhm.
don't know me. Okay, it is what it is. And my thing is people have their own minds, and let them do the rationale. themselves. Let them do the research. Let them listen. I would encourage them. That to me, that's a solution. Encourage them. We've had dialogue, but encourage them. And I think what Mr. Greer said, go and do the research. And I said it too. Research and find out.
Mhm.
Sit down, be quiet, listen for yourself, and then come back and let's dialogue.
Well, it's hard to
Absolutely,
be
absolutely.
to be in your lane when nobody will give you the opportunity
That well, I
to
got
do
it.
your
No, I
gift.
got that part. I got
And
that
that's
part.
and that's the thing that
I
I
got
think it
that.
would be a perfect world if everybody had the same opportunity
That's all I'm
to
saying.
Mhm.
to exercise their gifts. I
That's all
agree.
I'm saying. Yes.
That's exactly right. I couldn't agree more. And that is DEI. Mike, what do you have to say? We have 2 minutes and I will conclude. You've got 1 minute, Mike. What you have to say?
Well, I need another 30 minutes to go on top of all of these. But I
Well, we can
wanted
take,
to.
we
Oh,
can,
number 30.
It's a shame. It's a shame Greer had to leave us because I had a couple of things I
Yeah.
wanted to challenge him with. Um, One, because he's going into being an attorney and such. I think I would like his opinion on why here in America our prisons and our jails are overpacked with people, and why when you look at other countries their jails are small and empty and ours are huge and overcrowded. I'd
Hmm.
like to, because that tells me there's a societal problem, a governmental problem, where we're not addressing rehabilitation at all in our jail system. And I
Yes,
know
right.
Dr. Sims would back me up on this one.
Yes,
So
I will.
uh,
Yes.
and I wanted to maybe challenge him to, as a politician, as an attorney, to maybe take that on and find out why our society is broken. And in my opinion, it comes down to shame. We
Mhm.
lack shame in this country. You in other countries, if you shame yourself, you shame your entire family, and your
Hmm.
family will take care of business. And we don't have that
Mhm.
here in America. It's like, well, he was my son, but I'm not being held accountable for
No
anything he did.
accountability. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
You
it's
know,
a lack of shame. It's a societal problem, and that's why our jails are massive and overloaded and huge, and other countries don't have that. And I'd like to challenge
right.
him to
What,
see what he can maybe do in his political future as an attorney and as a politician to get to the root problem there and try to fix it.
But he already got
Um,
my vote. Oh, sorry.
and as far as I disagree with him respectfully about role models. My parents were my role models, and I was a sponge, and I absorbed everything that they did. They did things the right way, and I absorbed all that, and I tried to do that in my life. That's which I agree with Emma. They were my role models, and he brought up the situation that's true, that when people are brought up in a bubble and they see what their parents are doing, they emulate that, they reproduce that, and we end up with a vicious cycle. Well, dad comes home at 5:30 from work and has 2 beers and beats mom. Oh, that's what I need to do when I grow up. So we have this vicious
right.
cycle. We need to break that. So it's another societal
Right.
breakdown. So I
Yeah.
know we're limited on time, so I'll hand it back to you.
Okay. No problem. But what I'm caught when Greer was talking about role models, he was talking about most of us have role models that we can't even pick up the phone and call. I don't think
Mm,
he was talking about parents like that. No, yeah, and he said that he mentioned that your role models out here, you can't call Michael Jordan. I don't have Michael Jordan's phone number. Okay, but he's not
right.
my role model. But many people take on these celebrities as their role models, and then they get so disappointed and depressed when they found a scandal. Your role model did this. Your role model did that. Like, for instance, give you a real quick example. A lot of people grew up loving Charles Barkley, basketball
Mm,
player. You
Mhm.
guys already know it.
No, I
But Charles
didn't.
mm-mm,
Barkley,
mm-mm.
Sorry.
he was a mean. He's a
I
mean.
can't stand
He
him.
threw guys out the
No, he was
windows.
arrogant. No,
He
he was not a role model.
well, yeah, Dr. Sims, some people did, but he ended up
Okay.
throwing somebody out of a bar window. I remember seeing him on the basketball court when he
Mm-mm.
spit on a fan. I said, "Oh no,
Yeah, he
He
was
I don't
was
care
horrible.
how
He was
great
just
you are with
horrible.
basketball. You do not do things like that." But anyway, it
right,
was a
right.
great discussion. We can pick up
Mhm.
more of this next week, guys. Thank you so much. I want to just acknowledge some people that's watching: Shay Jones, Tony Longstreet, Crystal Murray, an influencer there. McKinley is watching. Grib, you still watching? Brian Reed, Stephanie
Mhm.
Coleman. I'm sorry, Shalane Coleman. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Emma, thank you so much. Raleigh Grad, thank you so much, Rock. And it goes on. Guys, this has been a fantastic program. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it is great to hear from young blood people, because like he said, he's going to be around a lot longer than us.
He's got future.
But
Right.
he does have a future. And there's more out there like that. And we need to support these young people. Dr.
Right.
Sims and Mike, a fantastic show. Great questions, guys. It was just fascinating. And we'll have Greear back on soon on this network. And Ann has him. When is he scheduled on your show, Ann?
It's
I think in
sometime in August. Yes, it's let me see what day that is that he will be on. He will be on August 2nd.
Guys, I would encourage you to listen to him. I will obviously I'm going to be there, but guys, and tell your friends about it. Please share this broadcast. We are on YouTube, we're on LinkedIn, Facebook Live, Alexa, the website, the app. Hey, keep it locked right here on Studio W The Buzz. Dr. Sims, Mike, and great program, folks. You guys, thank you so much.
Don't forget Miss
for your
Cece's Kitchen on Thursday. We be cutting up in there. Okay,
Yes,
that's on
sir.
Thursday at 4
Oh,
p.m.